Chapter 2, the Heifer, page 88. They ask you about menstruation. Say it is an impurity, so keep away from women during it and do not approach them until they are cleansed. When they are cleansed, you may approach them as God has ordained. God loves those who turn to him in penitence, and he loves those who keep themselves clean. Your wives are your fields. Go then into your fields as you will. Do good deeds, and fear God, and know that you shall meet him. Give good tidings to the believers. Commentary by Maulana Wahiduddin Khan. Doing good works means acting with the hereafter in mind, in the knowledge that there is an eternal side to life, which is more important than the temporal side. It is for eternity that we should strive. Should our actions on earth profit us in this life, but be harmful to our everlasting life, we shall have lived our lives in vain. What we do on earth will be judged after death. We should take care to ensure that our deeds measure up well on God's scale of justice, for if they fail to do so, there is no way we can avoid his punishment. Chapter 2, the Heifer, page 89. Do not make God a pretext when you swear by him to avoid doing good, being righteous, and making peace between people. God is all-hearing and all-knowing. God will not call you to account for any oaths you uttered unintentionally, but he will take you to task for what is intended in your hearts. God is most forgiving and forbearing. Commentary by Maulana Wahiduddin Khan. Swayed by anger and obstinacy, sometimes an individual swears an oath that he will not do anything which would benefit a certain person. In ancient times, a variety of such oaths was very common among the Arabs. They swore oaths that they would refrain from such and such a good deed, so that when they were called upon to join in some good act, they would decline, saying that they had already taken an oath to the contrary. To refrain from good acts is in itself bad enough, but swearing to this in the name of God is much worse. For God is a being who is all-merciful and all-good. Then attaching the name of God to the non-performance of good works is sinful. Perversion at all events is bad. But if perverse acts are done in the name of God, there is a manifold increase in the evil perpetuated. Chapter 2, the Heifer, page 90. For those who swear that they will not approach their wives, there shall be a waiting period of 4 months. If they revert to conciliation, surely God is most forgiving and ever merciful. But if they decide upon divorce, God is all-hearing and all-knowing. Divorced women should wait for 3 menstrual cycles. It is unlawful for them, if they believe in God and the last day, to hide what God has created in their wombs. Their husbands have the right to take them back within that time, if they desire to be reconciled. The wives have rights corresponding to those which the husbands have, according to what is recognized to be fair, but men have a rank above them. God is almighty and all-wise. Commentary by Maulana Wahiduddin Khan. There are certain people who keep swearing oaths inadvertently, out of sheer habit. This is quite wrong. A believer must refrain from doing so. However, between husband and wife, such thoughtless oaths have been held legally invalid due to the delicacy of the marital relationship. But the case of solemn, intentional oaths is different. If a man intentionally swears by God that he will not go to his wife, this is taken seriously, and then Islamic law will take its course. In the family system, both the man and the woman have duties as well as rights. Each of them must, as well as demanding his or her rights, honor the rights of others. That is, if we want others to fulfill their obligations to us, we must also fulfill obligations to them. If one misuses his power and advantageous position to act unjustly towards others, then he cannot save himself from God's chastisement. Chapter 2, the Heifer, page 91. Divorce may be pronounced twice, and then a woman must be retained honorably or released with kindness. It is not lawful for you to take away anything of what you have given your wives, unless both fear that they would not be able to observe the bounds set by God. In such a case, it shall be no sin for either of them if the woman opts to give something for her release. These are the bounds set by God. Do not transgress them. Those who transgress the bounds of God are wrongdoers. And if man finally divorces his wife, he cannot remarry her until she has married another man. Then if the next husband divorces her, there will be no blame on either of them if the former husband and wife return to one another, provided they think that they can keep within the bounds set by God. These are the bounds prescribed by God, which he makes clear to men of understanding. Commentary by Maulana Wahiduddin Khan. Divorce is an abnormal event which takes place in an abnormal situation. But in this most emotional matter too, the Quran commands us to adhere to going in fear of God, taqwa, and to being both just and kind. From this we may gauge what kind of behavior God desires from a believer in this life. We are commanded to break the marriage bond, if this has become unavoidable, in 3 stages and not all at once. This course takes 3 months to finalize. The prescribing of a very seriously thought-out procedure in such an extremely emotional matter shows what the behavior of a believer should be in cases of difference and discord. His behavior with his opponent should be dispassionate, well considered, and the result of patient decision-making rather than impulsive action resulting from some hasty or rash decision. Thus, the procedure for divorce has an important lesson for life in general. Chapter 2, the Heifer, page 92. Once you divorce women and they have reached the end of their waiting period, then either retain them in all decency or part from them decently. Do not retain them in order to harm them or to wrong them. Whoever does this wrongs his own soul. Do not make a mockery of God's revelations. Remember the favors God has bestowed upon you, and the book and the wisdom he has revealed to exhort you. Fear God, and know that God is aware of everything. When you divorce women and they reach the end of their waiting period, do not prevent them from marrying other men, if they have come to an honorable agreement. This is enjoined on every one of you who believes in God in the last day. It is more wholesome and purer for you. God knows, but you do not know. Commentary by Maulana Wahiduddin Khan. Even after taking a decision as regards separation, one must continue to consider the possibility of reconciliation. Even when relationships have to be finally severed, one must not take this as an end to all human relations. Even at such trying turns, we have to fully adhere to God's law. In carrying out the commands of the Islamic law, no legal loopholes or excuses should be sought to evade their execution. In the observance of the law, the spirit behind the words must be given great importance. For instance, what the husband had given to his wife during their marriage should not be taken back after separation. If before their separation they showed goodwill towards each other, they should also be on their best behavior during their separation. A man once divorced his wife and did not return to her during the time of waiting. After this period had come to an end, he had second thoughts and, along with some other prospective husbands, he too made her a proposal of marriage. The woman was willing to remarry her former husband, but her brother objected to it. He sought to thwart their reunion, but the Quran decreed that when both agreed between themselves in a lawful manner, they should not be prevented from being reunited. Literally, when you have divorced wives and they reach the end of their waiting period. Chapter 2, the Heifer, page 93. And the divorced mothers should nurse their children for 2 whole years, if they wish to complete the period of nursing, and during that period the father of the child shall be responsible for the maintenance of the mother in a reasonable manner. No soul is charged with more than it can bear. No mother should be made to suffer on account of her child, and no father should be made to suffer on account of his child. The same duties devolve upon the father's heir in case of the death of the father. But if, after consultation, they choose by mutual agreement to wean the child, there shall be no blame on them, nor shall it be any offense for you if you desire to engage a wet nurse for your children, provided you hand over what you have agreed to pay in a reasonable manner. Have fear of God and know that God is observant of all your actions. Commentary by Maulana Wahiduddin Khan. After divorce, many matters remain to be cleared up. Sometimes the husband and wife wish to remarry, or maybe the woman wishes to have a new husband. On no account should obstacles be placed in their path. A woman may well have children from her former husband. Maybe they are infants who have to be suckled. This being the case, the man and the woman should not cause trouble for one another. Rather than make the matter an emotional issue between them, they should settle it by mutual counsel and consent. This is how a believer should settle matters involving conflict and separation. The interests of both parties should be respected, with neither party seeking to inconvenience the other. Attempts should be made to settle the dispute in a manner acceptable to both sides. This is the cleaner, purer way of settling disputes, a method befitting those whose souls have been purified by true belief. Unless a person believes in God and fears his judgment, he will not be inclined to heed admonishment, no matter how correct and relevant it may be. He will set out to find a loophole in the advice he has been given and make up some excuse. Chapter 2, the Heifer, page 94. If any of you die and leave widows, the widows should wait for 4 months and 10 days. When they have reached the end of their waiting period, you will not be blamed for what they may reasonably choose to do with themselves. God is aware of what you do. It shall be no offense for you to hint at a proposal of marriage to divorced or widowed women, or to cherish them in your hearts. God knows that you will bear them in mind, but do not enter into any secret arrangement with them, beyond conveying some indication to them of your inclination. Do not proceed with tying the marriage knot before the end of their waiting period. Know that God has knowledge of all your thoughts. Therefore, take heed and bear in mind that God is forgiving and forbearing, or the other for not applying it to himself. One who believes in God in the last day knows, however, that the matter does not end there. Finally, it will come before God, at which point the erring individual will not be able to make any excuses for having shirked his responsibilities. Commentary by Maulana Wahiduddin Khan. While explaining the laws of marriage and divorce, the Quran repeatedly enjoins going in fear of God and being kind to others. This shows that to carry out any command in its true spirit, individuals are required to go beyond the wording of that command in its purely legal sense. Rather, they must have feelings of goodwill, well-wishing, kindness, and justice for one another. At the same time, they must always go in fear of God. If they do not behave properly with their fellow men, they will incur God's displeasure. On Judgment Day, neither will excuses come to their rescue, nor will they be able to hide anything from God.